One, Kamala Harris won the debate. Did Donald Trump lose the debate? Will it even matter in the race for president? Two, fact-checking ABC, doing the job that wasn't done in fact-checking Kamala Harris. Three, help me. You help me figure out what happened last night. The Willisha. Who won the debate? Donald Trump or Kamala Harris? It is the Will Cain Show, streaming live at foxnews.com, on the Fox News YouTube channel, and the Fox News Facebook page. Always on demand by simply subscribing at Apple or on Spotify. If you're watching today on Facebook, head on over to the Will Cain Show, hit subscribe. You'll get clips and videos and hang out as part of our community, the Willisha. You can jump into the comments, where I think we should have a very active back and forth conversation this morning. If you're watching on YouTube, just expand the text description underneath this live stream. There's a little button. Hit subscribe to the Will Cain Show. Jump into the comments section, because I want you. I do. I want to hear from you, Willisha. And here is why. I have spent the last couple of days talking to you about the difference in what you want something to be and the way something is. The way you feel something should be in the world versus accurately describing reality. I think that is a common problem when it comes to commentary. I think we are afflicted by two particular ailments. Number one, we constantly mix up what we want to be with what is. I told you just yesterday, if I come out here on Wednesday and say Kamala Harris won the debate, there are many people who will say, Will's a rhino, Will's soft-kneed, Will's weak, Will's not really for Trump. That same analysis doesn't apply, for example, if I say, the Cleveland Browns lost to the Dallas Cowboys. In my best estimation, accurately describing reality. You don't have a bunch of Cleveland Browns fans going, Will hates the Browns, he's weak-kneed, he's a fair-weather fan. See, I'm a firm believer that you can't fix reality unless you first recognize reality. So the first job for all of us, but a particular burden on someone like me, is to do my best to share with you what I think is. And if I can acknowledge what is, well, then I can go about helping to shape it into what I think it should be. But the second ailment is getting outside of our own head and only seeing the world through our own eyes. I think that perspective and subjectivity are the natural human condition. I don't even want to call it an ailment. I just want to say it's the way we're built. But it doesn't give us an idea of how the rest of the world sees something. And the hardest part in a subjective competition like ice skating or bull riding, as opposed to a football game or politics, is that you have to get outside your own eyes to see how the other judges might view that particular performance. Here's the way I saw last night through my own eyes. I think it was a win for Kamala Harris and a loss for Donald Trump. And I'm not the only one that felt so. I want you to listen to Brit Hume last night on Fox News.
And here she was tonight. She was composed. She was prepared. She kept her cool. She saw advantages. She took them. She baited him successfully, which is the story of the debate, in my view. So she came out ahead in this, in my opinion, no doubt. Now, whether it'll move the needle in the race, very few things seem to, but that remains to be seen.
I shared that opinion with Brit Hume, and I'm just going to give you the top line. I'm going to subject what I say to your criticism and your debate, your pushback, but I'm also going to bring in my friend at Fox News, Shan Duffy, to tell me where he thinks I've gotten this wrong. But I think from the outset, the visuals favored Kamala Harris. She's a foot shorter than him, but that was negated by the presence of a box and a lowered podium. She looked bright. She looked happy. She smiled. He looked dour. His face showed grumpiness. I think that is very important. Remember, it's not how I feel or how you feel, but our best to try to interpret how the casual normie observer who's still persuadable, not a cheerleader who simply needs the ability to wave their pom-poms, but someone that's still persuadable might see that image from last night. I think that Donald Trump too often spoke in half sentences and half thoughts and jammed 50 points into a 90-second answer where she was focused and had a plan and executed that plan. I felt all night she was on offense and he was on defense. And even though I personally found her facial expression smug and condescending, I've got to step outside my own eyes. Check out this from Fisher King. I think he's a really good commentator on X. He said the following when it came to her facial expressions. He said, for every man annoyed at the smug attitude of Kamala, there is a single woman watching this who is cheering, clapping, calling her brilliant, becoming very energized to vote. You've got to be able to see how other people view this. So I also think Donald Trump missed opportunities to land haymakers. I think that he played an away game. I think ABC was incredibly biased. And today, we will do the job that wasn't done by ABC. Stick around, and I will fact-check Kamala Harris. But I still think it was a winnable debate. Just as one example, she rattled off 5 lies in one answer. Very fine people, bloodbath, and he didn't adequately land the haymaker fact-check and response. And because of that, my feeling is it was a win for Kamala Harris. Now, I'm going to quickly do this. Tell you, I have humility. I don't know how others see this. I'm doing my best to get out of my own head and my own eyes. So I do want to share with you this quickly. Take a look at this headline from the New York Times. Pundits said Harris won the debate. Undecided voters weren't so sure. Now, it's possible that what went on last night wasn't a win for Kamala Harris. And I want to hear from you. I want to hear from Shan Duffy, because I've also seen stuff like this. And this is Kamala Harris and Donald Trump last night giving an answer with dial testing when they're talking about the economy. And you can see blue represents Democrats and yellow and red represents independents and Republicans. The most important line here is yellow. The yellow line tracks the red line. Independents stay with Republicans. They stay with Donald Trump feeling negative about Kamala Harris talking about the economy, while Democrats love what she had to say about the economy. In the reverse, when Donald Trump is talking, Democrats in the blue line go down. They don't like it. But look at the red and the yellow lines. They both go up. Not quite as big of a tight of a track between red and yellow, but still mirroring each other to some extent. Yellow with red, independents with Republicans when it comes to Donald Trump and the economy. What I am saying to you is I'm trying to accomplish 2 things in this conversation. Not confuse what I think should be with what is, and do my best to step outside of my eyes and see this from the eyes of the independent. And no way do I feel like I have some monopoly on that perspective. So we bring you in. Jump into the comment sections on YouTube. Jump into the comment sections on Facebook. We will bring you into the Will Cain Show. We will also hear from Shan Duffy with story number 1. Shan Duffy is the host of The Bottom Line on the Fox Business Channel. He's also the host of the From the Kitchen Table podcast, along with my Fox and Friends weekend co-host Rachel Campos Duffy, which you can get at Fox News Podcast. And he's with me now today. What's up, Shan?
How you doing? Well, listen, by the way, I've listened to the podcast, to the show, and I thought you've been given a very fair analysis of what you think happened, but again, trying to get yourself out of your head and into the mind of the maybe undecided voter, and what impact does this debate have on them? And I think that is the mission, right, of the conversation. Not what I think, but what does everyone else think about what happened here last night? And again, there's so much to talk about. I can't wait to get into it.
So what do you think, though? Well, I'm just curious. I want to start with my own curiosity because I haven't talked to you. And you know what I did last night, Shan? I did something different than I normally do because I'll be real with you in the audience. I had to go to a football booster club meeting last night during the debate. So what I did is I recorded it, Shan, and I got home and I started watching, and I watched half last night and I watched half this morning. But what that forced me to do, and then I made a conscious decision, Shan, Will, Don't get on X. Don't start seeing what other people have to say. Don't get on the television and watch post-game analysis before you watch the game. I really wanted fresh perspective for me, my own independent thought. And I am equally curious about your independent thought, not what you think the voter. Let's get to that. But I'm just curious, like you, what did you think about the outcome last night?
So listen. So I think there's two things we want to look at. Let's look at the debate last night. What our opinions are of what happened, but then also maybe later we can talk about what impact is this going to have on the election, because we have a debate because we have an election. And so you like sports analogies. Momentum always matters. In hockey, who scores the first goal builds momentum, right? In football, the same thing. Momentum matters in a debate. And so I thought the first moments, by the way, I did the same thing you did, Will. I watched half of it. I got through the first commercial at the first hour, and I went to bed and I watched the second half this morning. So didn't talk about that with you, but did the same strategy. So in the first question comes to Kamala Harris. And by the way, I saw her walk out. I thought she was nervous. I thought she was uncomfortable. Yes, she walked over and shook Donald Trump's hand, but it didn't seem like she was confidently doing it. First question comes. Donald Trump says in many of his rallies that Americans believe that they were better off 4 years ago than they are today. What say you, Kamala? That was the question. She doesn't answer it. She rattles a pre-rehearsed script to the audience, but doesn't talk about the economy and how people are doing now versus how people were doing 4 years ago, right? So again, I think I was a prosecutor, but you don't have to have been a prosecutor, or you don't have to be a lawyer to prosecute a case. I heard that and I'm like, of course Donald Trump is going to go, listen, you didn't answer the question, but I'll answer it for you. All Americans know the answer to this question. Of course they were better off, Kamala, 4 years ago when I was the president than they are today. We've had 20% inflation over the course of this presidency. We have an open border. We have more crime. We had peace when I was president. We now have wars around the world. You have been an absolute disaster. Answer it that way. Lean into her. Put her back on her heels. And she was nervous, and she would have been rattled, I think, for the rest of the debate. Donald Trump didn't take that opportunity. And I think you mentioned this. What happened was she was prepared and she was smart. She would answer questions at the beginning, and then in the last 20 seconds, she would throw bait at Donald Trump, maybe on crowd size. Your crowd, people leave your debates, right? You'd say that at the end of a statement or of an answer, and Donald Trump would take the bait, and he would, instead of talking about the issues that we care about, he would say, people don't leave my debate. They love my debate, my rallies. They don't leave my rallies. I have great rallies. People don't come to your rallies. We're talking about rallies and not about the economy and the border and crime. So I think that was a missed opportunity. And when you talk about who won, I also thought Kamala Harris won for this reason alone. And I don't want to get people angry at me either, but you got to be fair. She's a word salad. Joe Biden's polling was so low, Will, they had to kick him out of the race. The only political person who had lower polling than Joe Biden was Kamala Harris. The American people didn't like her. And we have all these video clips of her with word salads and really bad policies. The problem was she came out last night and she actually put sentences together that made paragraphs that made sense, right? She did that.
Yes.
And was never called out on it. But I think what some of these undecided viewers want, Will, is there an acceptable alternative to Donald Trump? And I think she presented herself in a way that made her somewhat more acceptable than she was when she was the vice president. And for that reason, she was a win.
I think I agree with your analysis. And I always have to hammer this in. And I'm not trying to be patronizing to the audience, and I'm not trying to buy my insurance policy for people that might be mad at me. I truly think it is hard. It's proven to be hard to separate analysis from rooting interest. And I agree with your analysis. I especially like what you had to say about she spoke in paragraphs, because look, you and I, my friend Pete Hegseth, your wife Rachel Campos Duffy, have seen enough of her to know that is not easy for Kamala Harris to speak in paragraphs. But she did it well, which is probably the product of two things. Practice. She took this debate seriously, I think, and went in prepared. And secondarily, always played offense. She was always on the front foot. She was never on defense. And now we're going to talk about ABC in a minute. I'm going to fact check ABC.
Great point.
ABC giving her a home game allowed her to be on her front foot in a way that Donald Trump had to be on his back foot. But look, it is what it is. And Donald Trump should have known that going into debate. This is what it's going to be like. And so then he has to be the one to put her on the back foot, right? So he just didn't do it, to your point. Like, it felt like he has completion syndrome, like obsessive compulsive disorder. Like, I've got to say everything every time. And in order to say everything every time, I've got to shorten the points. And to me, they become half points and half thoughts. And then if you combine that, Shan, with his propensity for hyperbole, so everything is the best ever or the worst ever, right? They're destroying the country, da-da-da-da. It loses punch if you do it all the time. To me, again, I'm all doing this in my best analysis part. So if it's hyperbolic every time and it's half-thoughted every time, you're never putting her on defense. And I don't think she was for the entirety of the night. The only thing I disagree with you on is she might have been insecure on the first answer, but I thought it was really smart to go shake his hand. And she crossed the stage, which made her look, to me, brave. It made her look like it was like a little symbolic moment of, I'm going to take the game to you. And I just think that was smart. Like, if it was you or me or our sons, I'd say, you go shake his hand. And I would even say, shaking someone's hand is alpha. Like, you're letting them know I'm not afraid of polite courtesy. And I just thought it was kind of a good move on her part to go do that.
I get
initiate
that point.
the handshake.
Well, I felt like it was a little bit like, hi, Mr. Trump, I'm Kamala Harris. Nice to meet you, sir. I felt it was she felt a little bit small in the moment. And again, I think everyone could read this. People could agree with you or me. We all have our own opinions of that. But just if I can make one last point on this, Will, if you're going into a debate, you're going to try a case. Would you rather have Donald Trump set of facts where you're like, listen, I had 4 great years in the economy, right? We had world peace. I've laid out my plan on how to make this country great again. And I've been talking about the plan. And I haven't really changed my positions on much of anything. I've been saying the same thing today as I was saying in 2015 when I first got in the first race for president. That versus Kamala Harris, who is a word salad. She can't complete thoughts. She's changed her positions from the time, when she first ran for president to right now when she's running for president without winning one primary voter. And you got to defend that. On top of defending the record of the Joe Biden and Kamala Harris economy, you hands down would say, I'm going into a debate and I want to be Donald Trump because I'm going to smash this thing. I'm going to be a winner. I can't lose.
Yeah.
And that's what's so frustrating because it was the terms coming in by record totally favors Donald Trump. And that we're not saying today he crushed it. I think that's the disappointment that I have in what happened last night.
And you're right, that is frustrating. And it showed itself in many ways. Like, here's an example. In the answer that I told you she gave, the very fine people answer, right? She gives that answer. She packs into it like 4 lies. Well, what I would have done in that moment is I would have said, and look, I say this with a lot of humility because Donald Trump's won a lot of debates, but I don't think that he won that debate. And here's what I would have done. Now, Mrs. Vice President or Kamala, you know that's a lie. The 2 moderators who may not fact check you on this know that it's a lie. Everyone, in fact, at this point knows that's a lie. Snopes has fact checked that and said that's a lie. If you listen to the clip in its entirety and not a manipulated cut, you will hear me say, not Nazis and white supremacists. They should be condemned. But you are purposely lying to the American people. And that's just one example. You're doing the same thing with bloodbath. You're doing the same thing with your proposals on fracking. You're doing the same thing with your approach to gun control. And you're doing the same thing when it comes to health care. You are looking this public in the eye, just the way you're looking at me today and telling a lie, and you're lying to them about the policies that you would enact as president. Now, that's what I would have done, Shan. I would
now just had one thing on that.
firmly
If we were
rebutted.
teaming up on this, I would add into that. I'd go,
Yeah.
and by the way, we know you're a liar because you've told us for 3.5 years that the border was secure, and we all knew that was a lie. You all told us that Bidenomics was making our economy great, and we all know that was a lie too. So listen, we're familiar with your lying, right? And we've all peeped your game, right? Because everyone agrees with that point. They all know the border's open and the economy is horrible. But listen, that is brilliant, Will. If he had done that, what you just said, drop mic, drop it, and you shut her down. And then again, you put her back on her heels.
And but you know what he did?
Never
You have to go back. He says, if you expand it a little bit, it's a lie. And like even saying you expand what a little bit? You talk about the video clip. Here's the thing I think's happening, Sean. I'm worried for the right that it has morphed into trying to win X and not trying to win an election. And those are not one and the same. And in a lot of ways, I feel like the way Donald Trump spoke, like it's like a tweet. It's like, hey, just expand it a little bit. It's like it almost presumes the audience knows what you're talking about. Here's a great example. The cats and ducks, but he even called it cats and dogs story last night about Springfield, Ohio, right? Okay. I was texting with a mutual friend of ours, and they were like, look, 90% of people don't know what you're talking about. Like, they don't know that story. And so you haven't told them the story. You just kind of said, they're eating cats and dogs, and I did this yesterday on the show because a lot of my producers, and they don't mind me saying this, I think Tinfoil Pat, my producer, I sometimes tell him, Pat, you're too plugged into X. Like, that is not where most people's minds are, whatever's happening on X. And so it doesn't matter for the sake of winning whether or not it's true. By the way, for what it's worth, Donald Trump got fact check on that, but there's also, that was a bad fact check because there are reports of Haitian immigrants. We can see the police video who have eaten cats. But for the purposes of the debate, Sean, it doesn't matter. You know why? Because it sounds crazy. That's it. It's not complicated. It's simple. Think of the common person out there who's not plugged into X, and all of a sudden, what's he talking about? He's talking about eating cats and dogs? And it just sounds crazy, regardless if it's true.
So you made an interesting point. You're concerned for the Republican Party that they're trying to win the debate on X, not the debate that you're actually in, that everyone's watching. And I take that. But was I surprised about what happened last night with President Trump? Not really. I mean, we've watched him since, again, the 2015, 16 debates, and this is kind of the standard in how he engages in conversation. And you make a good point. You gotta complete thoughts and then put thoughts together. And he does. I think his mind moves so fast. He has so much stuff in there that he doesn't do a full cycle on a thought, because another thought comes in and he starts to go with that thought, and then he goes to another thought. And if you listen to it, it's harder to track him unless you know where his mind is at. And you need to take the audience along with you as you lay out your case. But again, I wasn't shocked, because I think this is what he's done in all the debates. And so, but had he prepared a little more, and by the way, if there's a second debate, I do think he learns, and I think he'll be very different. He'll prosecute the case against Kamala Harris very well in a second debate, should one come. He'll learn from what happened here and what he didn't do.
If that happens,
and how she baited him.
If that happens, I'd like to offer one more example, like I did with the Very Fine People. Here's another one that I was like, oh, what a missed opportunity. So, David Muir brings up this very condescending question about, do you think it's appropriate to talk about how she identifies racially? Do you remember that moment towards the end of the debate? Okay. Trump immediately is on his heels. And he's defensive. And his answer is like, I don't care. Like, I don't care. I don't care what she is. She can be whatever. I don't care. And he just kind of, I don't know. I've never actually seen him that on defense with something. And I would have said this, Sean. I would have said, I'd take part of what Trump has to say. I would say, David, I do not care whether or not Kamala Harris is black or Kamala Harris is Indian. I do not care how she identifies. The point of bringing up her racial identity is that she conveniently claims different racial heritage depending upon the audience in front of her. And that is important because the question before us today is whether or not the person standing to my left is a phony and whether or not we can trust anything she says, not just on who she is racially, but whether or not she will be the kind of president she's promising today. Will she tell you she's not going to ban fracking and then be a president who fracks? Will she promise to close the border or do what she's done for the last 3.5 years and leave open the border? And the point of her racial identity is to only show you she will say anything, including her own personal identity, to get you to vote for her for president. That's what I would have said. And that, David, that question is entirely appropriate.
Listen, Will, again, would have been a mic drop moment. Hands down, the right way to answer the question. Because what you did there, and if maybe there was a little more prep on the Trump side, is you took an incoming, what should be back on your back step, and you've now pivoted and you've turned it into an attack on Kamala Harris, right? And that's what you want to do in a debate. You want to take the incoming, whether it's from the debate moderators or Kamala herself, and pivot it and attack her. And that throughout the debate, that really never happened. He took the incoming and defended himself as opposed to the pivot and went after her. And you know what it can come across as, Will? And this is the allegation that she makes against President Trump, which is, he's all about himself, right? He's not about the people. And you and I know that there's nothing that could be further from the truth. He cares about making America prosperous. He cares about the downtrodden, the people that want a shot at the American dream. He truly cares about middle America, the people that come to his rallies. He loves them and cares about them. But the way he was answering questions last night, if you didn't have a strong opinion about who he was, it could lead you to believe that he does only care about himself, because he keeps talking about himself and he keeps taking on the weight of the attack and then defending himself, as opposed to pivoting away and then talking about the American people and how Kamala has destroyed their lives. So yeah, but yeah, to your listeners, I was going to say at one point, we're giving him a lot of criticism because I have some hope in this as well.
Yeah.
I'm not all dour on this thing. I think that we're talking about the debate, but I got some sparkles and roses coming. So
I do too. And so I want to move on. And again, I don't think it's a loving act to I don't tell my kids you did a good job if they didn't do a good job. So why would I do it with Donald Trump, right? Like, that's not what, and my son plays poorly, I'm going to tell him he played poorly. And, honestly, that's a debate, Sean, that I've had with myself. Like, should you build confidence in your son because confidence is enabling? And I'm like, well, it's false confidence if you always tell them he did well when they didn't do well. So if I don't do it with my family, why would I do it for the man running for president? But now I want to move on to this. Am I wrong? I really want to, I tell you everything that I'm telling you with humility, meaning I see these dial tests, Sean, and I don't know, maybe the independents feels totally different than me. Maybe everyone listening who I haven't brought the comments in yet, we will in a moment. If there's people listening and watching who are like, Will, you're totally wrong. Okay, maybe I am. I'm looking at these dial tests. I don't know, Sean. Maybe this didn't work for her in the way that you and I are sitting in the back here going, I think it was a win for Kamala Harris.
So, Will, what we just did is we had a conversation on style, right? We had a style point. We're watching a diving competition and we're looking at the style of the divers, right? How do they do? How do they pivot? Were you on your heels? Did you attack back? That's the conversation we just had. And here's the deal. We have the luxury to have that conversation because, one, we love politics, but we can sit back and critique them on how they did debating. But when you talk about the dial test, something else is happening, right? I don't know. In my life, I was a prosecutor. That doesn't pay the most amount of money. Will, I don't know if you know that, but it's not a high paying job. I have 5 kids.
I do.
I remember going, hey, listen, if a $200 bill comes in a month, I was stressed out because I don't know how I was going to pay for that. And if I lived in that those economics of when I was a prosecutor with all the kids, and I had this inflation, and I was dealing with gas prices, I'm beside myself. I'm stressed out. I have marital conflict now because of how we're spending money and how we're managing our money. And that's what America's going through right now. You can have people that are making $100,000 a year and a couple kids, and they're pinching their pennies to make their lives work. And so, to your point on the dial test, if you're one of those people, and that's a huge part of the electorate, you're sitting there going, I didn't hear anything that makes me feel comfortable, makes me feel good, that you will make my life better, that you have a different plan for this economy than what I saw, that I've seen in the last 3.5 years. I don't feel good about it. You might have had sentences and paragraphs that led to thoughts, but what you conveyed does not put me at ease. And that's why I think
you
this
did two
is
things.
Not going to have a bearing.
So this is the humility we have to have, the self-awareness. So we're asking for a knockout win for Trump. That did not happen. The next step is, did Kamala Harris implode? It doesn't appear as though she imploded. No. She got up there. She spoke in paragraphs. Then the final thing is, did Kamala Harris win? Donald Trump didn't win. She didn't implode. But does that add up to her for a win? And that's the final step that I'm not sure. I'm trying to be real with. It may not have happened. And I'm looking at these dial tests. And granted, it's one dial test. And we're going to see a lot of polls that come out. I did see the betting markets moved her way overnight. But the independents, again, the yellow line on this thing I've got up in the studio, it is what matters. And to me, what I read from this, Sean, is that the independents already have their mind made up about her on the economy. You see what I'm saying? Like, this yellow line, these independents don't trust her on the economy. And she didn't do anything to change that last night.
Because she didn't lay out real plans that they felt confident could change the course of their financial life, or the security in their neighborhoods, or the border, or deal with foreign policy. And just maybe another point on that, Will, with the dial test. If you look at the history of presidential politics and debates, whether they're presidential or even Senate debates or House debates, what you find is that people can lose a debate and still win elections. Happens all the time. I mean, many would argue that George Bush lost in 2004 in the debates that he did against John Kerry in 2004 or Al Gore? John Kerry.
Yes.
Anyway, he lost those debates. Donald Trump, arguably, we have some great moments from 2016 between Trump and Hillary Clinton that we'll play, because you'd be in jail, that quote. But in its entirety, the three debates, many would argue that Trump lost those debates with Hillary Clinton and he won the election. And I think the purpose of making that point is, yeah, debates matter in the sense of, what kind of style, how do they pivot, how do they interact with one another? But in the end, the policies that the candidates talk about, whether they're in interviews or on the stump, that's what's going to drive people to go one way or the other. And again, that didn't happen last night for either of them. But in total, I think Trump has laid out a more concrete vision for where he wants to take the country. And a lot of people can believe that because they saw the first 4 years where he accomplished what he promised.
So that was the final place I wanted to go with you today, Sean, is does it even matter? Like, even if Trump lost the battle, what does it matter towards the outcome of the war? And what I wonder is this. We had Newt Gingrich on and Ben Domenech on the show yesterday, and one of them gave a stat that I found fascinating, which is somewhere around 50% of Americans didn't even know there was a debate last night. And they just don't live their lives like that. They don't live their lives politically. Yeah. And those are the people that I would presume, Sean, that actually change elections. Like, most of the time we hear from the people who already feel one way or another. And the truth is, if you're in the comments section right now on YouTube or Facebook or X, I'd be really curious about you. Don't you already have your mind made up? Like, so you're looking for reinforcement and validation, either way, for Trump or Kamala. The person who is undecided, which is really, that's the hardest thing for anyone like you or me to put ourselves in the shoes of, right? That's the hardest one. Like, how could you be undecided? They may not have watched last night. They might have watched Love is Blind on Netflix. They might have gone to a football booster meeting. They're the ones. And I'm not convinced, regardless of what happened last night, that it impacts the election. And to your point, I think the most powerful thing will be, Trump tried to say it at the end. I'm not sure that it worked at the debate, but I do think it will work in motivation for voters is you've been here for 3.5 years. Why are you a change from what we've had for 3.5 years? Because we're ready for a change in America.
Will, you brought up what he said at the end. Had he said that at the beginning, would have been brilliant, right? He saved his best moment was at the end when probably people were starting to tune out and go away and go to bed, as opposed to that. He should have led with that, right? And he didn't. But I'm glad you brought that point up, because it was one of his finest moments where he actually pivoted and went after her. There are undecideds, and I think you're right. Who are those people who don't know who they're going to vote for? Because the visions couldn't be more stark, right? There's just, really different ideas of where this country should go. I think what it's more about, Will, is and I know these people, they're my family. They're people who will tell me I'm going to vote for this one, right? But they're not hardened. They could be persuaded to vote for the other. And I see a lot of those people. It's like, yeah, I'm going to vote for Kamala, but I'm concerned about it. And I could vote for Trump if I felt better about X, Y, and Z, or vice versa. And so there was a CNN poll that came out last week. I think it was CNN. And in the swing states, it was anywhere from 12 to 15% of the respondents were saying that they could move their vote. They are persuadables, right? Which, again, the people in your comment section, they're probably not persuadables, right? You and I are probably not persuadables, but that's a big number that in the poll, and they're telling us this is who's going to vote for who in Arizona. However, 15% on either side could switch their vote based on, I don't know what the personal factors are. So I think what we're going to see is a lot of movement. And by the way, I think Fox did this timeline. So you have the Donald Trump conviction. You have the debate where Joe Biden implodes. You have Donald Trump being shot. You have Joe Biden getting out of the race. You have Kamala getting in. You have the RNC convention. You have the DNC convention. Now you have it's like, if you think this race is going to slow down, it's not, right? This is the pace that we're on. And this debate from last night will be a blip in the news cycle, and we'll be on where Americans are paying attention to the issues that matter to them. And they will not be when they go to the voting booth thinking about what happened last night.
I think you're right. But it was an awesome discussion. I really, really enjoyed this conversation because some of my favorites are where I'm trying to figure it out. And we've got to be real with each other. By the way, this awesome conversation, in my estimation, with Shan Duffy has been sponsored by Tunnel to Towers. Shan, really appreciate it. We'll be checking you out on the bottom line a little bit later.
Thank you. By the way, I love that Frank Siller
and
Tunnels to Towers is sponsoring you. Love that. Thanks for having me on, Will. A good one.
Yeah, well, by the way, listen to this, and I know you know this. The Tunnel to Towers, countless veterans villages, Shan, they stand as a beacon of hope for those who sacrificed everything. These facilities are committed to helping veterans achieve stability and independence in services based on individual needs. So within the village, residents will find support and community among those who truly understanding the meaning of service. There's several veteran villages completed or in development nationwide, and the foundation and supporters believe that the power of unity and that no veteran should ever be left behind. So through its Homeless Veterans Program, Veterans Villages, and National Case Management Network, the Tunnel to Towers Foundation has provided housing and supportive services to over 8,000 veterans since its program's inception. Join Tunnel to Towers in their goal to eradicate veteran homelessness and support those who've given everything to our country by donating $11 a month to T2T.org. 95 cents of every dollar goes directly to helping America's heroes. That's T2T.org. And I agree with Shan. We totally appreciate Frank Siller and Tunnel to Towers. This is how we can all show our appreciation. $11 a month. Donate.
Hey, Will, am I still on your show? Am I still on?
Yeah, you're on.
Can I tell you a story about Frank Siller and Tunnel to Towers? 2 years ago, I was getting on a plane with Frank Siller, and he told me about he was going to do these villages for vets. And I was like, really?
Yeah.
Like a village? And he was like, yep. I'm like, you've raised that much money? He said, oh, no, I don't have the money for it. I'm like, well, how are you doing? He's like, oh, no, we're going to raise the money. You wouldn't believe how generous America is on how they'll give to these projects. If we put this out there, the money's going to come. And I was like, the guy that has faith in America and faith in our vets was like, I have an idea. And the American people will give to this cause. And now you're talking about right now. It's actually happening in America. What, $11 a month on this 9/11, people giving to make sure if the government's not taking care of our vets, Frank Siller and Tunnel to Towers is going to. I love it. I love it. I love these sponsors.
Real quick, what I love about that story is A, his vision, a vision and innovation in creating something, and B, what you said, the generosity of Americans. I've seen that firsthand when I asked Americans to help the people of Lahaina and Maui, and certainly everyone who's ever had any involvement with Tunnel Towers knows the way America stands up for each other in these types of things. And I think Shan and I both said, no better way than Tunnel to Towers. Absolutely. All right, Shan, appreciate it, man.
Thanks, Will. Have a good one. Thanks for having me on.
All right. Check them out on The Bottom Line a little bit later today, or the Kitchen Table podcast at Fox News Podcast. Let's fact check the debate last night. What wasn't done? Trump was fact checked in real time by ABC. We'll fact check Kamala Harris today on The Will Cain Show.
The world of business moves fast. Stay on top of it with the Fox Business Rundown. Every Monday and Friday, Fox Business reporters, anchors, and hosts will bring you beneath the stock market speculation and boardroom drama to tell you about the biggest business stories of today. Whether you're on Main Street or Wall Street, Fox Business is invested in you.
Listen to the Fox Business Rundown every Monday and Friday at foxbusinesspodcasts.com or wherever you download your favorite podcasts. We're Bringing forecasting grit to the gridiron. Fox Weather is storming the field with the risk of weather impact on the hottest NFL matchups all season long. Delivering unmatched insight from the leader in weather news and how the forecast could affect your favorite players. We are taking you right into the end zone with Fox Weather's exclusive weather forecasting technology and the risk of weather impact for every single game of the regular season. Listen to Storming the Field every Friday on FoxNewsPodcasts.com. Get all of your favorite Fox News podcasts commercial-free on Apple Podcasts with Fox News Podcasts Plus. From Dana Perino, Kennedy, Ben Domenech, the Duffys, and many more. Subscribe now by going to FoxNewsPodcasts.com. The Fox News Rundown, a contrast of perspectives you won't hear anywhere else. Your daily dose of news twice a day. Featuring insight from top newsmakers, reporters, and Fox News contributors. Listen and subscribe now by going to FoxNewsPodcasts.com.
Willisha blowing up. Your comments coming in here on the Will Cain Show, including, for example, the following comments. This from Daniel Taylor says, "Hey, Will, as a total Democrat, I appreciate your fair coverage." Well, thank you, Daniel. Hardwire 1% says, "They both sounded stupid because they could not say anything specific about policy. Neither of them could. It was just a fight about calling each other liars." It tends to do that, doesn't it? Just kind of, you're a liar. No, you're a liar. And then let's see if I can bring it down and share with you what Rashon says. "I don't see how you can proclaim winners and losers in a rigged debate. The normal, legitimate structure of debate were not followed. Just get over this winner thing. Stupid crap." Well, what I'm interested in what Rashon has to say here, I mean, he's mad at me, I guess, is the idea of a rigged debate. So, okay, rigged. Let's talk about that concept for just a moment. Rigged. It was not a fair debate by any stretch of the imagination, but it was still a winnable debate. Like, I do think Donald Trump could have won that debate. And maybe I'm guilty of being a perfectionist. Like, oh, I would have said this or I said that. And maybe I'm too proud of what my answers would have been. Like, I gave you 2 examples with Shan. I don't know. I just feel missed opportunities, and I still think it was a winnable debate. But that doesn't mean it was a fair debate. Donald Trump was fact-checked by various estimates in real time last night. Something like 8 times. Ryan Saavedra on Twitter, he's a pretty good commentator. He did his own transcript number, and he says that Donald Trump was fact-checked 4 times. Kamala Harris fact-checked 0 times. David Muir and Lindsey Davis pressed Donald Trump, he says, 6 times for follow-ups. They pressed Harris 0 times for follow-ups. Saavedra says Trump made 14 false statements. Harris made 16 false statements. I don't think Donald, for the record, like, he's doing this thing like every legal advisor says Roe v. Wade should have been overturned. It's not true. But he was also fact-check on some stuff. And I don't think all the fact-checks were fair. She was fact-check on nothing. Nothing. Okay? Now, I want to go through some of those egregious moments. As we talked about, very fine people has been debunked, and not just from Fox News and right-wingers. Snopes, which is lefty, debunked. Okay, it's not even a close one. There is no defense for that lie. It is a slanderous ad hominem attack, maliciously taken out of context to paint your opponent as a racist. It is the worst of all lies. Same with bloodbath. And he tried last night. He said, I was talking about economic bloodbath. I do not think he eloquently checked it. Same thing. That should have been fact-checked in real time by ABC. Now, let's talk about one time he was fact-checked. He says, at one point, there are states where you can have abortions 7 months, 7, 8, 9. And Harris starts going, no, that's not true. Okay, well, first of all, let's check that. Interestingly, here's an article up at ABC News. They didn't provide this to fact check her. This is from the Guttmacher Institute. They have a map of states where there are no restrictions based upon gestational duration. There are, according to this, 9 states that have no restrictions. Alaska, Oregon, Colorado, New Mexico, Minnesota, Michigan, Maryland, New Jersey, Vermont, D.C., no restrictions up through 9 months. So when Trump says 7, 8, 9 months, and she's like, nobody would do that, explain this to me. Explain this to me. See, that's an issue, I feel like abortion, where he tried for a minute. And the moderators asked it, by the way. They did ask Harris, would you be for any restrictions on abortion? And she doesn't really give you anything. She just kind of does a callback to Roe v. Wade. But it's now in the legislative process. So that means if you wanted to write a law, either limiting abortion or protecting abortion, you'd have to write the law. You'd have to say what you want. So what do you want? Do you want to be like Minnesota, where your vice presidential candidate's from? Do you want no restrictions up through 9 months? Is that what you want? You know, you should have to say that. Now, Trump says in the course of this debate, well, there's some states, even this is part of what he does. This is why I wish he would tone down hyperbole, because then when he says something that's not hyperbole, it sounds like more hyperbole. He says, in some cases, even after birth. Okay? Now, he's fact-checked by ABC twice. Lindsay Davis, there are no states where it's legal to abort a baby, kill a baby after it's born. Now, Trump first says, no, listen to the former governor of West Virginia. Wasn't West Virginia. Then he figures it out somehow. And the second time he says it, what about the former governor of Virginia? So I want to play for you what he's talking about and why ABC's fact check is fake news. Watch.
When we talk about third trimester abortions, these are done with the consent of obviously the mother, with the consent of the physicians, more than one physician, by the way. And it's done in cases where there may be severe deformities, there may be a fetus that's non-viable. So in this particular example, if a mother is in labor, I can tell you exactly what would happen. The infant would be delivered. The infant would be kept comfortable. The infant would be resuscitated if that's what the mother and the family desired. And then a discussion would ensue between the physicians and the mother. So I think this was really blown out of proportion. But again, we want the government not to be involved in these types of decisions. We want the decision to be made by the mothers and their providers.
So just listen, that's former Virginia Governor Ralph Northam. Third trimester, and he says maybe the baby has a deformity, severe deformity, whatever the reasons. He doesn't give you an exhaustive list of reasons. And he says in labor, a mother in labor delivers the baby. Everyone understands this is now post-gestation. Once a baby is delivered, we're now post-gestation. To Donald Trump's point, after birth, right? And then he says there's a conversation between the physician and the mother about what to do. This is not... So you have to understand that fact check, and when he brings it up, it's not a lie. And he got fact check on that. Kayleigh McEnany was all over it, the Fox News contributor, former spokesperson for Donald Trump. She tweeted out immediately, the ABC moderator decided to inject herself into the debate. Here is a fact check on babies left to die after surviving abortion in Tim Walz's Minnesota. Pointing out it does happen, okay? Lindsay Davis is wrong. So that's fact-checking the fact check. Now, here's the fact check they didn't give. Kamala Harris says, Donald Trump says she wanted to defund, right? She wanted to defund police, and she wanted to bail out protesters in Minnesota. She goes, no, I didn't. And that's when he did the I'm speaking thing, you know, which I think undercut a very important point. Take a look. Here's the tweet from Kamala Harris, okay? If you're able to, chip in now to the Minnesota Freedom Fund to help post bail for those protesting on the ground in Minnesota. I just read you Kamala Harris's words. They're up. If you're able to, chip in now to the Minnesota Freedom Fund to help post bail for those protesting on the ground in Minnesota. Nothing. No fact check. Nothing. Instead, she gets to go, no, that's not true. How about guns? He says, She wants to confiscate guns. She's going to do a gun buyback. She says, I'm not for that at all. Well, did they fact check her? No. But we can fact check Kamala Harris with herself. I think we have this one. 2 days. Do we have the gun one? I sent that in, but I didn't see it on your list.
Just the fracking one.
Okay, but there was a clip of her. I thought I sent it in, so we just miscommunicated on that, where she is openly saying, of course I support a gun buyback program. And then the fracking one, which is the big debate in Pennsylvania. Are you for it? Are you against it? She said last night, I'm the same as I've always been. In 2020 and as vice president, I opened the land up for more fracking. Really? Is that what you said in 2020? Because we can go to the tape.
My family lives in western Pennsylvania, where fracked gas wells have become a common sight, yet the toxic impacts of fracking on the community are immense, from contaminated groundwater to poisonous emissions. Yeah. Will you commit to implementing a federal ban on fracking your first day in office, adding the United States to the list of countries who have banned this devastating practice?
There's no question I'm in favor of banning fracking. So, yes, and starting with what we can do on day one around public lands, right? And then there has to be legislation. But yes, and this is something I've taken on in California.
Come on. Right there in her own words, there's no question I'm for banning fracking. And then last night she gets up and does that, and there's zero fact check from ABC. Somebody put this out. You can do what CNN did and do no fact checks when it was Trump versus Biden. They did none. Or you have to do it equally. Instead, what we got last night was one way. Unfortunately, I saw a CNN anchor tweet this morning. If you have asymmetric lying, you're going to have asymmetric fact checking. You live in loony land, CNN. If you think Kamala Harris didn't tell lie after lie, just as a sampling on very fine people, on bloodbath, on abortion, on defund the police, on guns, on fracking, with her very own words as the counterpoint, then you're living in Never Neverland. That being said, with that fact check on ABC, it was still a winnable debate. It was still a winnable debate. It was an away game. And of course it was going to be. It was biased. It was still winnable. Not sure it will matter in the race for president. Okay, let's open it up. Okay, let's open it up now. Real quick. Hey, 2 days in New York. Do you have the phone number?
I do.
I don't have it in front of me.
It's
What is the phone number to call us right now?
855 Fox Talk. That's 855 Fox Talk.
Okay, can you give me the numbers? Like if I'm sitting there, do phones even have letters on their numbers anymore?
Yeah, totally.
I don't even know.
So 855 3. Let me write it down. 855 3. It doesn't have it on the phone. It just says the words.
Okay, you're right. There are still letters on those numbers.
Okay. I'm turning into like a Gen Z or something.
855 Fox Talk.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, call. I'll put you on here. If you think my analysis has been wrong today, I have a lot of, either way, humility about this.
It's on the screen.
But I definitely have all of your comments right now. What?
The number's scrolling on the bottom here.
Oh, you got it? Yeah, if you're watching on YouTube or Facebook, yeah, there's the number.
Yep.
Okay, and or we got your comments on YouTube, Facebook, other places. We'll bring you in the show. Let's hear from you, the Willisha, next on the Will Cain Show.
From the Fox News Podcasts Network.
Hey there, it's me, Kennedy. Make sure to check out my podcast, Kennedy Saves the World. It is 5 days a week. Every week, we check in with Jimmy Fallon, bring in authors for the book club, and even treat some of your favorite Fox personalities to a very special happy hour. Download and listen at foxnewspodcast.com or wherever you listen to your favorite podcast.
Kennedy Saves the World. America's listening to Fox News.
Streaming now on Fox Nation, a new season of The Real Hatfields and McCoys, Forever Feuding.
We're a moonshine family.
The longest-running American drama
Hatfields, I'm coming after the moonshine business.
returns to Fox Nation
My daddy taught me if somebody's hurting until you kill them.
That's a family tradition.
with all new episodes.
Show them what the Hatfields are made of.
We have to shut them down.
Never let McCoy outdo me. We'll see what happens at the end.
The Real Hatfields and McCoys, Forever Feuding, a new season streaming now on Fox Nation. Sign up at foxnation.com.
Stay on top of the latest forecast with America's Weather Team in the palm of your hands.
Here's the latest from America's Weather Center.
It's Fox weather updates throughout your busy day, every day.
That heat's going to be out there for one more day.
Temperatures being 30 degrees above average.
Put the power of over 100 meteorologists and the worldwide resources of Fox in your hands with the Fox Weather Podcast. Precise, personal, powerful. Subscribe and listen now at foxnewspodcasts.com.
All right, let's hear from you. What happened last night? Did Kamala Harris win? Did Donald Trump lose? Did Donald Trump win? It's the Will Cain Show, streaming live at foxnews.com, the Fox News YouTube channel, the Fox News Facebook page. Hit subscribe at Apple, Spotify, or on YouTube. Jump into the comments section. Just become part of our community here on the Will Cain Show. Let me check in with the boys in New York real quick. Tinfoil Pat in Florida, Two-A-Days, and Young Establishment James in New York. On the morning call, there was a fair amount of disagreement, right? If keep it tight, okay? But Tinfoil, I think you had a different perception than I did. You basically felt like Trump won, but it was like Alabama surviving a victory against McNeese State. Like, should have been a blowout, but won by a field goal. That was kind of your perception?
Yeah, I mean, and to be fair, kind of like what you were saying about being engaged on X during the debate may have influenced some of that. I felt like Trump had periods where he could have done a lot better, but I didn't think he lost it. I didn't think she won it. But I always think you need to bring your A game in these kind of situations. You didn't do that.
Well, Annie Green on YouTube says, you're judging it a win even though she lied, ? Annie, this is what we started the show with today. The goal is, a win and a loss is, did you persuade anybody? Did you move the election in your favor? It's not, hey, did Will like it, right? It's not, hey, did you have what you think to be true validated? And look, she lies and she gets away with a lie. That's a win for her. Okay, if it's a convincing lie, right? That's the truth. I don't like that's the case, but it is the truth. And so that's why it's on him to call out the lie and to be mad at ABC for not doing so. But yeah, you can absolutely say she won, even though she lied. What's up, Two-A-Days?
But is it like what we talked about a couple weeks ago with Trump, where he doesn't exactly lie? He kind of just embellishes things to a degree where, it's kind of an untruth, if you want to say it that way. You know what I'm talking about?
No.
For her?
For her, yeah.
Her?
For her. Like she did the same thing almost. Where...
What do you... Go ahead, James. Go ahead.
No, I think her lies are the complete opposite. Where Trump, it's usually something in the form of numbers or this is the best. With Kamala, it was directly Donald Trump said this about this situation, or he is going to do this, when there have been numerous examples of Trump saying the exact opposite. I will not do this on abortion. Right. I will not do this on this issue, or I did not say this, and she gets away with it.
Got it. So I agree with James. I don't think so, too.
I was just asking the question.
I think hers are blatant. No, it's fine. I think very fine people is a perfect example.
Yeah.
It's just, that's not exaggeration. That is a malicious lie. A malicious lie. Jenny Paloma on Facebook says, for those who say it wasn't fair, politics are not fair. I mean, I think that's a decent point, I mean, but the thing is about politics not being fair, that's one thing, Jenny, but do we ever get to expect some type of equal treatment from the media? Again, the realist to me is like the answer is no. No, but it's not right. Stephanie Borth says on YouTube, if Trump thinks it was rigged, then he must have thought he lost. Trump was on Fox and Friends this morning. He says he won going away, 90-10. I was like, where did he get that poll? And somebody said he got it from X. This is my fear. X is not the real world. X is a validation mechanism, man. It really is. What's up, Tinfoil?
He got that from an ABC poll after the debate. So
on X.
I don't think that was on it. Was it on X?
That was an ABC poll on X.
Yeah. Maybe.
I mean, it wasn't. I mean, your point is well taken. Like, it wasn't an Elon Musk poll. That matters too. Who puts the poll out on X, right? I mean,
that's
if
why
I
I wanted
put
to
it
clarify.
out right
Wasn't
now,
Elon Musk.
Yeah, it's ABC. So, but it's still. I wonder the way X trends overall at this point, right versus left. You know, aside from individual accounts. W on YouTube says, I'm an independent, and I felt like Harris had the upper hand by baiting Trump, and he took the bait. That is something we talked about on numerous times today with Shan. That's right. I feel like he did. He constantly took the bait, and that's why he was always on defense. I don't think, by the way, you have to fact check everything she says. It's, you know what, man? In the beginning of my career, I worked for CNN, and when they put you on a panel, it's like 1 versus 3. It's a little bit like being Jessica Tarlov on The Five, you know? Or First Take, same thing. It was basically 1 versus 3. It wasn't even me versus Stephen A. It was me versus Stephen A., Max, and to some extent Molly on a lot of occasions. And maybe even another guest in there. So Damian Woody. And so it's 3-4 on 1. Here's what you get to do when it's that. You think it's bad, but it's actually not. Because you don't have to rebut every single thing they say. You get to rebut your favorite thing they said. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, that's true.
You pick the weakest argument or the one you're strongest on, and you go beat that SOB like a piñata, right? And you don't have to do them all. And you shouldn't, because you can't. You don't have time. Then you're just scatterbrained. Then you're just like it's like swatting flies instead of beating a piñata. You know, it's like, I got to hit this one, this one, this one, this one. I even told Jessica that, like, hey, you shouldn't try to respond to everybody. I think I did that on this show. Peter Bake says elections aren't won on debates. That's a good point, Peter. I think we made that point today. I agree with that. Jeremy Wills says she had 40-plus days to learn her lines. It's all an act last night. She's a good actress because she did a good job with it. Lisa says, why can't Fox News hold a debate? I feel things need to be more balanced for once. I totally agree, Lisa. Like, it's almost like you have a moral obligation to put one on Fox where, like, ABC, NBC, CNN, CBS, they're all the same ideologically. I guess the one difference is, I told you guys this, David Muir is old school liberal, old school biased. He's like a 2013 media lib. He's not full propaganda, full over-the-top buffoon clown. He's just old school biased in what he's doing. Dennis Jensen says the whole world witnesses a pathetic lying Trump and a strong and intelligent Kamala. Greetings from Denmark.
I like that one.
Greetings.
Dennis, methinks you're not doing yourself a favor. Kamala winning the race for Denmark.
Yeah.
Sylvia Rivers says, seriously, Dems think intelligent people can't see through her and ABC minions. George Jetson says that's because she had time. She had the answers ahead of time. I don't know, but I mean, there's zero evidence of that. I did see people point out Donna Brazil. That's right? Yeah. Works for ABC. She used to work for CNN, and they gave Hillary through Brazil as the accusation, that stuff ahead of time in 2016. I think I read that one earlier. Truer than you know, says Shan Duffy is saying Trump can't communicate his thoughts, so why should I vote for him? Well, Biden can communicate his thoughts well. I don't think Kamala communicates her thoughts well. You would vote because you believe that they would actually enact the policies that you think are better for the country. That's why you would do that. El Donaldo Trumpez says,
What a name.
It says the way Will Cain just fact-checked Kamala was incredible. Maybe he should have been on that stage.
Yeah.
Thank you, Eldonado. Womp. What? You think he means as moderator or candidate?
I don't know.
Either or. Which one do you want?
It's a very smart person in the chat.
I don't know. WAP. Here, let's just. Maybe he should have been on that stage. All right, that's as a candidate.
Yeah.
Thank you for that vote, Donaldo. 80 million more to go. WAP Mamas says, I'd force her to do a town hall platform. She needs to answer the people's questions. Boy, that would be good. That would be better than what we got last night.
I have one in the chat right now. Steven says, the fact that they didn't fact check her on Project 2025 in the beginning says it all.
I think Trump
What about Project 2025?
Well, she said that he was a part of it, right? And that it was attached to him, which is not true.
I think that was actually one of the better moments Trump had. He's usually better in the first 20, 30 minutes. I think he actually gave a pretty pointed response where he's like, I haven't read it. I don't want to read it.
Yeah.
Do we really think Trump read a 900-page document?
But it's truly false.
No.
Right? You know.
What? That it's his guiding plan?
Exactly. So that's a fact check false.
I mean, they should have. They should have. Project 2025, to me, I mean, I can't imagine it does much. Like, I can't imagine that line of attack is effective. Maybe it is because they've really gone in on it. I honestly don't think people know what Project 2025 is. And so, again, that's the thing that makes the people on the left stand up and clap. You know, like the right stands up and claps on eating dogs and cats and ducks, and nobody knows what they're talking about unless they're on X. And then the left hears Project 2025, and they're like, get him, Kamala. And nobody knows what you're talking about. Right? So, I mean, this is the terminally online society's over-indexing of things that the people that will decide this election know nothing about. That's what it is. Anyway, that's my thoughts. That's your thoughts bringing you in to the Will Cain Show here. Like I've said, my goal throughout the day has been to try to accurately understand reality. I'll stay open and full of humility on what not I have. And you're always welcome to be part of the Will Cain Show. All right, that's going to do it for me today. I'm tired. Got to take a break. I'll see you again next time.